Chairman of the Board of Governors, Professor Alfred Tauber, Vice Chair, Lady Irene Hatter, Chairman of the Executive Committee, Mooly Eden, President, Professor Ron Robin, Rector, Professor Gustavo Mesh, our keynote speaker, Mr. Ronnie Chan, honored members of the board, senior administration, friends, faculty, guests, ladies and gentlemen. I have the honor and the pleasure of welcoming you to this 46th Annual Board of Governors meeting. My name is David Levitas. I'm a PhD candidate at the School of Political Science. A little later, I promise to properly introduce myself. We certainly have a full schedule this year, and we'll look forward to the coming days of both deliberations and celebrations. I have the pleasure of calling Professor Alfred Tauber to speak and open the session of the Board of Governors.
Good morning, governors, visitors, colleagues. The 46th meeting of the Board of Governors is a full and exciting program. There is much to discuss today, especially. We will be fulfilling various fiduciary responsibilities, inducting new members of the Board of Governors, and this evening we have the extraordinary pleasure of conferring honorary doctorate degrees. And I urge you to come to as many of these various events as possible. My remarks about from the seat of the chair, I will postpone for a few minutes, and in the meantime we're going to begin with something extraordinarily interesting, and I will turn this podium back to our MC.
Thank you, Professor Tauber. We now have the privilege of hearing our keynote speaker for today, University of Haifa friend, Mr. Ronnie Chan. Mr. Chan is the chairman of Hang Lung Group Limited and its subsidiary Hang Lung Properties Limited. Mr. Chan is co-founder of Morningside, an international investment group which is strongly committed to social responsibility through the Morningside Foundation. In Hong Kong and mainland China, Mr. Chan is chairman of the executive committee of the Better Hong Kong Foundation, convener of the Hong Kong Development Forum, a vice president of the Real Estate Developers Association of Hong Kong, and a governing board member of the China-United States Exchange Foundation. He founded and chairs the China Heritage Fund and is a co-founding director of the Forbidden City Cultural Heritage Conservation Foundation in Beijing. Internationally, Mr. Chan is Chairman Emeritus of Asia Society and a chairman of its Hong Kong Center and a director of the board of Peterson Institute for International Economics. He is a fellow of the American Academy of Arts and Sciences, a member of the Council on Foreign Relations and the National Committee on United States-China Relations. Mr. Chan is active in education in many countries, including Israel, and he recently hosted a delegation headed by President Reuven in Hong Kong. We are proud to call him a friend of the University of Haifa and a visionary whose educational work is an inspiration to all of us. He will deliver a lecture titled The Future of Israeli Academia, an International Perspective. Mr. Chan, please come up.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It is truly my honor and pleasure to be here. In particular, it is good to see my longtime friend, Stanley Gold. He used to, I understand that he may be elected to your, I don't know, I just heard this, but after you all know that he's my friend, you may change your mind. But anyway, Stanley is a great guy. He was the chairman of the board of the University of Southern California, on which board I serve. And so I serve under him. He is a terrible chairman. No, he was a great chairman. But anyway, we're delighted to see old friends again. Mooly, good seeing you again. The first time, my first exposure to Haifa University was with you and President Ron Robin at the Tel Aviv University, Tel Aviv Hilton. Ron, good to see you again. I have hosted him twice already. One time in Israel a month ago, in Jerusalem, and then 2 weeks later in Hong Kong, where I brought together a group of business leaders in Hong Kong to hear him. Anyway, delighted to be here. The only thing is that originally, well, I was asked to speak. I don't know why Ron decided to do that. That will prove to be his only mistake he has ever committed at Haifa University. And then he changed me to Thursday. He said, well, Stanley Gold is also speaking on Thursday. The only problem is I'll be in India on Thursday. So that's why you are stuck with this thing with me between you and other meaningful events of the day. I really don't think that I qualify for this title. We were talking back and forth about various topics I should address, and finally, to my surprise, when I got on the flight coming here last night, I saw this title, The Future of Israeli Academia and International Perspective. I can give an international perspective on many things, but Israeli academia, I really don't feel that I am qualified to speak. So if I say anything right, it's my credit. And if I think anything wrong, it's Ron's problem. But I'm sure that you have tremendous amount of credit with your board that I'm sure they will forgive you for a minor mistake. I will obviously draw from international perspective. After all, I have been involved in, I don't know, a dozen or two of universities over the last 30, 40 years, from the United States to Britain to Germany to Hong Kong, and more recent years in the last, 10 years or so, also in Israel. I think that I told Ron the first time I met him that you are one of the very few presidents of an Israeli university that I don't know. So it's good to befriend Ron. Let me just set out some basic premises first regarding my views as a businessman who have been involved in higher education extensively for the last 30, 40 years. As a businessman, I obviously look at business models. I don't care how smart you are. If your business model is wrong for the time, then most likely you will lose money. So I ask myself, academic, if you can treat it as an industry, forgive me for lowering all the professors to the level of industry, you need a model. And what is the business model of most universities? I came to the conclusion that perhaps the academic industry, if you will, is the most undifferentiated industry I know. If you were to talk to my brother, who is a Harvard man, he would say the standard of excellence is to get closer and closer to Harvard. If you're closer to Harvard, you're better. You're farther away, you're not as good. So today, Stanford, for example, is very close to Harvard, and so it's considered to be among the best. And so, as we all know, many of you, I'm sure, are businessmen like Stan and myself. If you have a business model that is undifferentiated, it is not easy to stand out and make a lot of profit. Of course, in this case, in the academic world, it is not monetary, but nonetheless, it is difficult for you to really achieve tremendous amount. So what are some of the models? Well, in the last, 100 years or so, led by perhaps the United States, a lot of universities have become so-called comprehensive universities, multidisciplinary. It's a big word, as opposed to, say, the Russian model. In Russia, learned by the Chinese, foolishly so, in my opinion, have segregated all the universities into aeronautical university, foreign language university, medical university, and this and that. Well, it has its strength, no question, but many, many things in the world today are truly interdisciplinary, and surely by being too specialized in a particular area, you lose the interface and the interaction of every day among the various disciplines. And as a result, you do not have the creativity perhaps that is necessary. And from a student perspective, all you see are, say, for example, if I'm in a geological university, that's all I see. every day I see are people who are in the one single discipline rather than having an exposure to many, many fields. And for that reason, I think that the universities in Russia, or for that matter, China in the old days, will lag behind. It really has a disadvantage of all the interdisciplinary fields or areas of pursuit that they are missing out. But that said, perhaps we should not go to the extreme. Consider some of the other successful cases, such as MIT, with which I am associated. I used to chair one of the units within the MIT. And Caltech, these are universities which are extraordinarily strong in engineering and sciences, and yet they do not have much on, let's say, humanities side or the social science side, a little bit, but not too much, and yet they have thrived as well. So my point is this, that there are different models, and every university has to find its own model in order to survive and to thrive in whatever community or country that it may be. There's another one, and that's something that President Ron Robin knows very well, something for which I'm highly skeptical, by the way. Ron, some of the time you and I need to talk about that, and that is the multi-campuses. New York University advocated that, John Sexton and you. And by the way, I don't know if I told you this, Ron, I saved NYU, New York University, single-handedly. You know how I saved it? John Sexton asked me to join the board, and I said no. And I think NYU is perhaps the most advanced in that regard, set up a campus in Abu Dhabi and in Shanghai, wherever else. Yale tried a little bit of that as well. They tried a little bit in Singapore. And Yale, I served on the President's Council on something also. I would say that it is a failed attempt. And I remember in my office asking Drew Faust, still the president of Harvard University, ready to retire now from that position, would you consider that? And his answer is no. And Stan Gold, you and I serve on the board of USC, and I asked our president, Max Nikias, would he consider that? And he said no. Now, not that they are necessarily correct. I'm sure that there are values to it, but I just don't see the ability to maintain academic excellence when you have too many campuses. These days, with communication and transportation, I think that it is much better to concentrate in one place. That said, I recognize from Ron, your presentation in Hong Kong 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, that I'm not talking about Haifa, which has 4 or 5 campuses, because you're still in the same neighborhood and you're constrained by geography, by land. Oh, by the way, any university which is constrained by land better find ways to resolve that one, otherwise you would hurt. That's why I explained to my wife as we were driving up here, you have this tall building in the top of the hill. I said they must be really short of land, but anyway. So different people are trying different models, and I think it's a good thing for the world. I may be wrong. Maybe other models will work over time, and it may enrich the academic community around the world by doing new things. But let me turn to another angle of addressing the issue, the topic that is given me, and that is, what is the purpose of a university? We all know that. It's 2 things mainly, research and educate. Well, universities are supposed to create or discover new knowledge. But the question here is, how much of that knowledge should be applied, and how much of that knowledge should be for the sake of knowledge itself? And I think that in a country like Israel, you probably have slightly different situation from other countries, which I will come back to later. But I would say one thing, and that is, you Israelis, have managed to found a university which is, to me, unique in the world. And I hate to say this, but I'm sure that you are proud of it as well, and that is you have Weizmann Institute. There's no such thing around the world. I traveled the world. I just came back from Berlin, and I just don't see anything like Weizmann Institute, where curiosity is the only thing that leads all the researchers. They have no application, they don't care for application. I know of no other universities. Perhaps Max Planck is the closest, but even then, it is a distant second, perhaps, to Weizmann. And after all, Daniel Zeifman, who also was my guest in Hong Kong a few months ago, that's a good friend of mine, and he came from Max Planck Institute. And when he became president of Weizmann, I think that he embraced fully the founding fathers' philosophy, which has a university that is totally led by curiosity. And the amazing thing is this, ladies and gentlemen, Israel is a small country, 8.5 million people. The land is so small, and yet you came up with a thing like that that is not found anywhere in the world. Not in the United States, not in Europe, and certainly not in Asia. But that is one extreme. Not everybody can duplicate that. The rest of us have to struggle with the fact that we do basic research, we do research for the sake of research, and yet also there is perhaps the need to apply the research to something else. The other objective of the university, of course, is to educate. And so allow me to review the development of tertiary education in one dimension, which I think is quite interesting, and that is most of the universities, at least America, the one in America that I know of, I would imagine elsewhere as well, start out as theological institutions. Harvard started out with a divinity school. It was a seminary, and Yale equally. And they are there to seek the truth. And that's why the single most used words in the, what do you call it, in the logo of a university in America is the word veritas. In fact, I like the word so much that I built a little hotel outside of Harvard called Veritas Hotel. In case you're at Harvard Square, you need a place to stay, remember Veritas Hotel. Most likely you won't be able to find a room, give me a call. Anyway, so universities in the West mostly started out as theological seminaries. And then, of course, then it branches out, perhaps during the Renaissance days. It get into humanities, it got into the arts, got into the sciences. And so you have a migration of a university from theological studies to humanities and arts and sciences. And from there, it moved on to social sciences, economics, political science, many others. And eventually, it got to something that still today many academicians perhaps look down on, and that is the professional schools. The law school, the engineering school, the business school. I was told that President Tin of Harvard, the dean of the business school there, was a candidate to be the president of the university when Drew Faust announced his retirement, but he didn't get the job. I don't know why, I have no inside information, but it is commonly believed that no business school dean shall ever become the president of a university, especially not one like Harvard. And so the professional schools are a breed of itself, and it's considered as academically not rigorous enough, and it's not pure enough. For whatever reason it is, there is the professional school that we know it today. But of course, as board of trustees of great universities, such as many of you sitting here in relation to Haifa University, we know that the professional school makes a lot of money. And like it or not, you need the money. Business school, even Harvard, Stanford, their business school makes tons of money. They branch out into education, into executive education and the like. And that really feeds the business school financially, which is, of course, very, very important. And then, of course, then you have people who grew up from those professional schools and into other areas, into the future career. And many of them come back because they make a lot of money as business people, as lawyers like Stanley. And you make a lot of money, and so eventually you give back a lot to the university. And so there's another reason why the modern universities today like to have professional schools. But then my question is this: where should your university or my university, whichever university, where in that continuum should you be? Obviously, we are no longer theological seminaries. although Harvard and Yale, for example, still have a divinity school. How pure should we be? How much should we lean to the side of just pure sciences, in humanities and the arts? Or should we be more in the middle, like the social sciences? Or should we go all the way to the other end of professional schools? Or should we have a comprehensive whole? Here, allow me to suggest one thought that perhaps is not in most of you, and that is, I think few would disagree with me that today we all live in an age of moral degradation. I have no, every age has been an age of moral degradation, that's for sure. And I've only lived 60-some years. And in my 60-some years of observing the world, I must say that in the last 10, perhaps, the moral degradation has been faster than any other time that I have seen. And so what about a university? What role should it take in this age of fast moral degradation? It brings me back to the Chinese educational philosophy. The Chinese educational philosophy is never to educate people to do the right thing. It is always to educate people to be the right person. It is to be and not just to do. To do is secondary, then to be. Obviously, it has its own limitations. Chinese universities taught basically nothing except morals and ethics. And as a result, it tends to lag behind in the modern sciences, for example, and social sciences, let alone the professional schools. And yet, I ask myself this question: in these days of moral degradation, should we not look back at the history of tertiary education in the West, such as the theological school and divinity school, or to the East, like in China, where educating people to be is more important than to educate people to do? That is something that I believe that at least universities should lead in the discussion of that topic, with the hope that perhaps we can help to arrest the downfall that we are all witnessing today. Now let me turn to another dimension of looking at the topic given to me, and that is, most people would agree that American universities are are today the best in the world. Forget about Harvard, getting closer and closer to it. Overall, American universities are today among the very best. And if you were to compare all the rankings, not that ranking means too much, but anyway, if you were to look at any rankings, American universities come up on top. Only British rankings, by the way, still have Cambridge and Oxford. Many other rankings may not even have some of those. And so I asked myself the question, what makes the American universities so good? Well, allow me to mention 4 points. Number one, the academic rigor. There's no question that American universities are extraordinarily rigorous. A few days ago, I hosted the dean of the School of Advanced International Studies at Johns Hopkins University. Many of you know SAIS, excellent organization. I hosted 4 or 5 professors from that institutions, as I did for Professor Reuven. And there was one fellow there, excellent fellow, who has a university PhD from Germany. And, to my knowledge, they perhaps are as rigorous as the American universities, but I also doubt. If anybody has a son or a daughter who want to get a PhD degree, the fastest place is probably go to either China or Germany. 3 years you can get a PhD degree, whereas in America probably it would take you 6 if you're lucky. And so the process with which one has to go through in order to get an advanced degree from top universities in America are perhaps more academically rigorous than most. I'm sure that in research there are always areas where they are as rigorous in Europe as in the United States, but I think the system itself ensures that American universities will always stay on top because of the academic rigor. Number two, America has a lot of competition. It's a big country. It's amazing now how Israel, a small country, already have 7, 8, 9 7 or 8 maybe, really more or less comprehensive universities that are really, really very, very good, of which Haifa is one. Well, America, being a much bigger country, have so many universities that market forces alone, if nothing else, will ensure that only the best will rise to the top. Number 3, there's relative academic freedom. I use the word relative because if anybody think that American universities have total academic freedom, you know nothing about American universities. Try to apply for a research grant from either National Humanities or a National Science Foundation. The sciences are probably better, but in the humanities side of things, if you do a research project that a country is against the prevailing wind of the political of politics in the country, I say good luck. The chance of you getting a grant to study those things are probably limited. So academic freedom is not absolute. But nonetheless, I think relatively speaking, in many, many fields, American universities, like certain other places, do have considerable academic freedom. And that's why, by the way, European universities will never rise to the level of the American universities because the government basically decide a lot of things. And the private sector or the university board cannot decide on many, many areas because of funding. So they use funding to control academic freedom. They don't know, they have tenure, they have many other systems, but they can still control academic freedom to a certain extent. But let me give you a last reason why I think American universities are so successful. And that is, they have a diversified funding source. No other universities in the world that I know has as diversified a funding base as American University. And that's why, by the way, private universities in America have surged ahead. If you were to turn the clock back 50 years, a lot of the top universities are still private, are state universities. But today in America, they're private universities, mainly because of the diversified funding base, has been able to surge ahead. Stanley, as I mentioned, was chairman of the board of USC, on which board I serve. We just raised, what, 7 billion US dollars in a matter of, what, 7 years, and we're still going on, and we're going to reach 9 billion pretty soon. How you use it is an issue, but let me just tell you a story. I was very impressed when I first joined the board. They had the last capital campaign, and they, for example, what they did was they shrunk the undergraduate class from 3,000 some to 2,000 some. As a result, the professor to student ratio improved greatly, and that's one way, among many others, to improve a university. But first, you got to have the money. And there's no question that private universities in America, especially the good ones, have been able to raise so much money. I don't know what, Ron, how much time you spend in fundraising in this country? A lot, huh? Huh? 1/3, okay. I would imagine that American University president probably spend more. They are really the chief fundraiser officer and the top PR person in the university as well. And any person who doesn't know how to fundraise in America cannot be the president of a good university in America. And as a result of that, I think money is not everything, but money can solve a lot of things. And as a university, I think we are very practical, and that's money does count. Another thing that I don't see anywhere else as much as in the United States is alumni loyalty. Alumni loyalty in American university, in particular the one that Stan and I are in, is perhaps the best. You know, we have a way of greeting each other as Trojans, as we call ourselves, at the University of Southern California, and we go like this. And I travel the world. I spend 70% of my time traveling. I go to Russia, Latin America, India. I'm in India tomorrow, a few days from now. I'm there 8 times a year, and I'm in Latin America many times a year. Everywhere I go, on airports, I see people with USC T-shirts. I go like this, and they will absolutely reply by doing the same. My point is this: alumni loyalty is tremendous, and that is something that even the top university in America cannot neglect. You know, when I was at USC in the 1960s, late 60s and early 70s, if USC were, we are probably the single most successful athletic program in the whole country for a long, long time. When I was a student there, if you were if we were considered as a nation, we would rank number 4 in the number of gold medal received in the Olympics in 1968 and 1972. And no other university can claim that. From 1900, we have never had an Olympics where we did not receive gold medals. In those days, I think the order was United States, Russia, Soviet Union, East Germany, and number 4, USC. Why? Reason is to gender alumni loyalty. Then, now, I left the United States, although I go back there every month. Bingo, another university has now challenged USC as the top athletic university. Which one is that? Stanford. Now, Stanford, as we all know, is a top academic university. Why do they have to build their athletic program? Because it genders alumni loyalty and hence fundraising opportunities. So now allow me to finally, on my last point, come to my observation of Israeli universities. I've been coming here for a long time. The first trip I made was 1975 as a 25-year-old kid, bringing my 16-year-old kid brother, and we travel. And I know Hebrew University very well because in Mount Scopus campus, it was the cheapest place where we can have a meal. We rented a dinky little car, and we drove up to Mount Scopus every day for lunch and dinner because it's cheapest. But let me tell you, food was bad. And when I see Menahem Ben Sasson today, who is now the chancellor for a long time president, even today, every time I see him, I complain. I said, don't take me to your university breakfast or lunch or dinner, because my memory has been seared into me how bad your food is. But anyway, so, I deal with many Israeli universities, Tel Aviv, and even Bar Ilan, and Weizmann, as I mentioned, and your neighbor, Technion, Peretz Levy, was just in Hong Kong a few months ago. Anyway, so I deal with the Israeli university quite a bit. Let me give you the pluses and minuses that I see it as an outsider. If I'm wrong, please forgive me. Number one, on the positive side, in Israel, just like the Chinese people, the Jewish people have a culture of education and studies. As a result, we have the people of the book, right? At least you're the people of the book, and that means you study. And I don't know if you are naturally more endowed and smarter than others. Some people say yes, some people say no, but doesn't matter. You do have more Nobel laureates than any other people. Last count, I think something like 30% of all the chemistry and medicine Nobel laureates are Jewish, and economics even perhaps higher. So I don't know if you are naturally more endowed here, but certainly thousands of years of studying the book has made you smarter. And the same thing with China, I would like to think. And unlike China, however, you have a tradition of debate and argue. Chinese, we don't argue and we don't debate. You argue and you debate. That's why I feel a little, sometimes uneasy, sometimes very easy when I come to Israel, because you like to debate. And that is another tradition that will enable you to build great universities. A third point is you have a lot of new immigrants. In the 1940s, you have a lot that came from Europe, and then in the last 15, 20 years, you have a lot from Russia, and now you have a lot from Ethiopia and elsewhere, in France and so forth. And the Aliyah, no question, bring a lot of people of talent to you that will enrich your universities. And finally, there's another, I put it as a positive side, okay? And that is you have existential threat. None of us like to live under existential threat, but that's a way of life. The fact of the matter is you do live under that threat every day. 2014, I was leading a Chinese delegation to Israel, and for 8 days, my wife and I and our delegation from China was under threat every day. The first day we got there, Menahem Ben Sasson from Hebrew University, together with Danny Gilliman, many of you know Ambassador Gilliman, were speaking to my group over dinner in Jerusalem, and right after that, the Hamas began shooting, and we experienced it firsthand. For 7-8 days, we were shot at, and we even took pictures of how the missile goes up and how the defense, the Iron Dome intercepted, and we heard it many times. That's certainly a big negative, but it's also a big positive, because that really forces your university to address issues urgently that perhaps may not be addressed otherwise. However, you have some negatives. Number one, you're a small country, only 8 million people. Hong Kong has 7.5 million people. And Hong Kong is a dinky little place. And you're small, but compared to Hong Kong, you're very big. But you still have very little people, and yet you have enough good universities. But the size of the population ensures that there are certain things that as universities here, you cannot do. And the second one I will mention is that all the professors would love me for saying this. I am amazed, I'm abhorred when I first found out how much your professors make here. Pittance. Your university professors are, on a per brain cell basis, is by far the best, because their salary, from my knowledge of American and Asian universities, including Chinese universities, you are by far the cheapest. It is for love of country that they come back or they stay here to teach. And so I think that we should all respect the Israeli professors more than anywhere else, because they are not there for the money of it. But nonetheless, we cannot deny also that probably will prevent some top professors to come to Israel or to come back to Israel. So finally, let me just conclude by offering a few thoughts on the way forward. Stan, allow me to say a word about our alma mater, University of Southern California. When I entered the university, it was a B university. It's not an A university. That was 1960s and 70s. It was a B university. And the good thing is I left. And that in itself probably catapulted it to a B+. So I have always been, I always tell, a lot of people ask me, friends of mine want me to write letter for the children every year for admissions to USC. And I tell them the way to pick a university is to pick a university you can barely get in, so that 20 years later, when you start working, the certificate in which you receive has appreciated in value, such that you will never be able to enter with your high school grades today. But you're lucky because 20 years ago, you got it. That is, to me, a great way to assess what university to enter. Well, I'm happy to say that today, USC is no longer a B+ university, because we have had 2 excellent university presidents. I always believe that if you have 2 great universities, long-serving, over 35 years, you will build a great university. If the board is supportive, the board is absolutely critical. If the board is supportive, you have 2 great universities that are long-serving, then you will have a good chance. And I think that it started in 1991, Stan, we had President Sample. He began to build the university, and now we have a second-run Max Nikias. He's running into a little bit of difficulty, but nonetheless, the 2 of them over the last almost 30 years have bring it into a solid A- school, in my opinion. If they can continue that track record for another 10 years, I think USC will be an A university. But anyway, so my last word is this. Israel being a small place, it cannot have too many really top comprehensive universities. You already have Hebrew, you have Tel Aviv, and so it seems to me that specializing in some areas, some niche, becomes a necessity. Ron was telling us, my friends, about your marine work, biology and so forth, and archaeology. I think that's an area that perhaps is one of the areas that you can be excellent, become the world leader. Ben Gurion University, very good in cyberspace, cybersecurity and defense issues. And then there are other minor issues that I would present to you for your consideration. One is, how about more international students? But of course, that will mean that you probably have to teach in English. But I think they enrich the campuses. They make a lot of more friends. In the long haul, probably it's good not just for your university, but also good for the country. I brought mainland Chinese, I'm ending. I bring mainland Chinese to here, to this country. One time I introduced 14 of my friends to BB. And the way I introduced to him this way. I said, Mr. Prime Minister, among my 14 friends in the room today, how much do you think they have given away in terms of charity? Of course, Bibi is not so foolish to answer me. The answer I gave him was, at least according to public information, $1.2 billion US. Most of them are much younger than me because they're first generation, not like me, I'm a second generation business leader. And yet they have given much of it is to universities, to higher education. And so having some foreign students from some countries, and you can pick the best of them, is a great way. Faculty exchange, special events. I just spoke at the IDC Herzliya conference a month ago. Well, who knows about IDC? Very few people know about IDC, but the Herzliya conference has made it very famous. INSS at Tel Aviv University. Certain events also tend to bring up the image of the university. So there are things we can do, and I wish you well. I'm delighted to be, once again, Ron, to be invited to address your this August audience. I must say that if I have wasted your time, it's Ron's fault. If I say anything useful, thank me for it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chen, for your perspective and your insights regarding USC, American universities, Chinese universities, diversity, the strengths of Israel, the strengths of this university, etc. I'd like to take a moment to remember a towering figure at the University of Haifa, Eliezer Raphaeli, at age 92, passed away last week. He was one of the founders of this university, which in 1972 was inaugurated as a full university, as opposed to a university institute. He served as the first general manager of the university from 1971 to 1977, and he was then elected president of the university. In 1977, upon completion of his term as president, he was elected as chancellor of the university and remained in that position for all these decades, remaining completely committed to this university's growth and its pursuit of excellence. I'm delighted to note that members of his family, his children, are here, and as we remember Eliezer, I'd like to have a short video presented. May his memory be a blessing. The accepted process for approval of new members to the Board of Governors has been conducted, and now I have the pleasure of reading out the names of the new members of this body. As you know, there are members of different categories. So first, the members of public standing. Mr. Eli Feinstein from the United States, Mr. Michael Geiger from Israel, Mr. Avi Kerbs from Israel, Mr. Kobi Nahadeya from Israel, Ms. Leora Ofer from Israel, and Professor Bernardo Sorge from Brazil. The Senate representatives, and they're all professors, so I won't bother with the titles. Batya Engel-Yeager, Anat Gesser Edelsberg, Anat Raj Zahavi, Nissim Cohen, Miri Cohen, Rosa Lyken, Benny Miller, Paul Miller, Yoel Mansfield, Saul Smilansky, Gal Richter-Levin, Zohar Zegev, and Aaron Shalev. The faculty representatives, Gur Alroi, Faisal Azazi, Zay, and Yitzhak Shmo. The administrative staff representatives, Naomi Greidinger, Libby Oded, and Rivka Rosenbaum. Welcome to the board if you're new, and I'm happy to welcome you again in the continuation of your service. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Tauber, and congratulations to all the new members. Now, as promised, I have the pleasure of introducing myself to you. My name is Havit Levitat, and I'm a PhD candidate at our University School of Political Science under the supervision of my very dear mentor, Professor Eran Vigoda Gadot, who also happens to be the Dean of the Herta and Paul Amir Faculty of Social Sciences. I'm a very proud member of the University of Haifa's 2018 grad team. This elite team of 16 PhD candidates is the future leadership of academia, both at the university level and at the state level. I, for one, applaud the University of Haifa management for creating this team and providing all of us with such a wonderful opportunity to shine. The team is led by Professor Michal Biron of the Department of Business Administration with the full support of the Graduate Studies Authority, and together we enrich and support each other. It has been a great privilege for me to have been selected to be part of this team. Over the next few days, you will meet some of us as masters of ceremonies during the proceedings. My research question focuses on explicating the unique attributes of employees' engagement in the public sector and examining the multi-level effect of employees and their managers' emotional intelligence on public servants' engagement. My study is interdisciplinary as it integrates between my previous education in psychology, my professional know-how as an organizational consultant, and my true passion for theory in the field of public administration. On a personal note, I feel privileged and honored to be standing here this morning and to moderate the opening plenary session that marks Israel's 70th birthday. It was just over 70 years ago that my grandparents came to Israel from Persia with the belief that the new state will become everything they dreamt of and more. Returning to this present moment, 70 years later, we can all be very proud of Israel's impressive achievements at the academic forefront. Before we begin with the various reports, I'm very pleased to announce that the university has decided to pay tribute to a giant in his field, Professor Emeritus Arnon Soffer. In his long and very prolific career, Professor Soffer has managed to combine his important academic work with his work with the top echelons of the military and security forces, as well as lawmakers and policy setters. The impact of his work is far-reaching. It has and will affect our lives in this country for years to come. We are about to see a short clip prepared a few years ago as part of our Revelation series.
אני עוסק בגיאוגרפיה פוליטית, בגיאוסטרטגיה, בדגש על מים, דמוגרפיה וביטחון. ב-1976 כנס מדעי בברית המועצות של ברז'נב. אני אמור לבוא לכנס מדעי, אבל כל זמני עסקתי באיסוף רשימות של יהודים רעבים. בלילות מלווה אותי שירנסקי לפני שאוסרים אותו. מפחד רזיתי 5 קילו, חוויה, ורוסיה מודיעה ברדיו שאני לא גיאוגרף, סוכן של ה-CIA, כי באתי לסוף רשימות על יהודים רעבים. אז זו חוויה באמת מיוחדת. אני בשבתון, הייתי אז, קיבלתי פולברייט בפורטלנד, אורגון, ארצות הברית. נכנסת אליי בחורה יפת תואר ומתחילה להתפשט. ואני תופס שפה משהו לא בסדר, רצתי למזכירות, אמרתי למזכירה, תשימי לב מה קורה בחדר, נדבר אחר כך. הבחורה הבינה שאני לא נלכד, התברר שאני באנגלית לא תפסתי את שמה, שמה היה חביב אללה, והיא לבנונית, שתנועה קיצונית מוסלמית שנמצאת בפורטלנד, זה אחר כך היה בחדשות, יותר מאוחר ניסתה ככה ללכוד אותי, גם דברים כאלה קורים. כשאני בן 75, לפני 2.5, צה"ל ואוניברסיטת חיפה עושים לי מה שאני אומר בהומור, הספידו אותי בעודי בחיים, יותר מ-800 מפקדי צה"ל לדורותיו, ואנשי האוניברסיטה באמת עשו לי אירוע שזה חד פעמי, אי אפשר לשכוח דבר כזה. אני חושב שבמעבר מבניין רבין למגדל, אני חולף על הנוף הכי יפה שיש בישראל. 4 מדינות רואים מהמקום שעכשיו דיברתי עליו. כל הבית שלי מלא מדליות על הרצאה טובה הזו, והחוויה לקבל את המשובים מהסטודנטים, זה נכון עד היום, אני מופתע, כי היום הסטודנטים זה כבר בגיל של נכדיי, והם מאוד מוצאים בעניין, אז זה לא סוד. אני ככה תמיד חשבתי, אני רוצה להיות קיבוצניק. הייתי שחקן בנבחרת ישראל בכדוריד, לפרופסור זה תמיד מופתע, ואנשים שלמה באמת, כי בראשון לציון מעולם לא הייתי פרופסור, הייתי סופר מהכדוריד עד היום. לא נשאר לי הרבה, החיים מתקצרים והולכים. הלוואי ואני אוכל את מה שלמדתי וידעתי על הארץ הזו, להמשיך ולתת למי שמוסמכים לזה. לתת, בסוף זה חוזר, זה כדאי. לא להתקמצן ולתת את מה שיש לך לחברה, לאחרים.
It is now my pleasure to invite our president, Professor Reuven, and our rector, Professor Gustavo Mesh, to present the shield. Professor Arnon Soffer, it is my honor to invite you to the stage. I have the pleasure of reading the words engraved on the shield being presented to Professor Soffer today. For your contributions to the development and prosperity of the University of Haifa, the university respects your groundbreaking and fruitful research, which has enriched the University of Haifa and its reputation and have heralded many policies on the state level. The University of Haifa is proud to have been blessed with your accomplishments and appreciates the great honors you have brought upon it. Professor Soffer, and I invite you to say a few words.
Thank you. I would like to thank for all this honor, Reuven, the professor, the university president, and the members of the 46th meeting of the Board of Governors. 54 years have passed since I was called upon to help to found the Department of Geography. I was at that time just an MA student at the Hebrew University. And today I'm still here. It's not simple and obvious. I think that when I compare the universities in the 70s or even the 60s and to see it to today, we don't have any reason to be angry, only with gratitude and satisfaction. For my personal reasons to rejoice today, I will mention only once. First of all, I got in this university all my academic degrees, from an assistant up to full professor. I owe the universities for giving me all the environment to be in about 200 international conferences, to be acclaimed in several research areas, geodemography and hydropolitics, to write about 200 academic articles and dozens of books, to be a chairman of the Department of Geography, the Faculty, Institute of Jewish Arab Center. I will mention, which is, in my opinion, is the most important achievement in the establishment and management of the Chaikin chair of Geostrategy during the last 12 years. I have another pleasure, it's to visit the Galilee, my academic laboratory, to see the outlooks, that it was my idea to do it. Planning the Bedouin permanent settlement were a lot of success. It was late Rabin, he asked me to do it the same in the Negev, and I said, no way, we don't have simply we cannot do what we managed to do in the Galilee. I like to visit the inter-urban industrial estates. It was my planning and idea, like Dovrat, Bar-Lev, Golani, and other places. You mentioned, and I would just mention it shortly, I am proud to find an influence on my work in the Israeli Defense Forces. Simulations, thousands of lectures. I will give you two figures. Since Israel was founded, we have about 212 major generals. I was a teacher of about 80 of them, and about 80 others, all kinds of other relations, including some operations here and there, location of military industries, White Ring Doctrine, for example, the urban warfare system model, the thousands of endless trips around Israel and abroad. I'm always honored to meet students that remind me that they still remember by heart, my lectures in the 50s and 60s and 70s. And I'm a special honor to see so many officers from the Army and police walking around this campus, knowing that I have a part in this unique reality. Therefore, I then have no reason to complain, but to be very happy. And thank you again for the opportunity to give me this prize. I promise in this occasion to continue and help the university as much as I can. Thank you very much.
Congratulations, Professor Soffer. And now, ladies and gentlemen, it is time for the presentation of reports. Professor Tauber, it is my honor to ask you to make the report as Chairman of the Board of Governors.
Thank you. It has been a year since we last convened, and much has happened. I have leave to others to report on those developments. I want to restrict my remarks first to a specific opportunity, and second, to a challenge that still remains unmet. First, I am today beginning my last year as chairman of this board. The Constitution allows for 2 3-year terms, so next June, a new chairperson will assume the responsibilities of this office. I make this announcement now because I hope that you will take seriously the process of identifying a new chair. To that end, please consider submitting nominations. Each and every one would be appreciated. We're seeking someone fully committed to the University of Haifa and who has the means to provide a kind of leadership to help those working on the university's behalf. I will leave with regret, but I want to do so confident that the position I am vacating is ably filled. This transition then leads me to the second focus of my short remarks. In June 2013, I presented my inaugural address to this body, and there I charted a vision for the university. In many respects, that forecast is now being implemented. The expansion of the university is progressing quickly, and you will hear those details soon. But now I want to re-emphasize a message I made 5 years ago that considers the larger goals of the university, and I will be brief, but I hope you hear me. Ultimately, the university is responsible for generating ideas from its research and promoting the values to guide the next generation. Thus, the students who come here must learn more than the skills for a profession they will practice. They must also learn how to be good citizens. I've maintained from the beginning of my tenure that the university has a social role, and the most immediate is to help create a vibrant democracy. Besides sponsoring new scientific research, the University of Haifa has another important role as a unique generator of civic and political ideas that present a progressive model for Israeli society. This brings me to the underlying mission of the university, namely its transmission of moral values. The university has always been a place where values are debated and where the exercise of ways of thinking about values are enacted. Teaching about the parameters of truth and objectivity, for instance, is fundamental to everything social. Respecting various opinions as a value is the basis of academic freedom, and of freedom more broadly understood. The notions of exercising free speech and of respecting that of others is the basis of any discourse taught in the classroom, and precisely because of Haifa's unique population of students and faculty, it provides a social and institutional framework for exploring the values that underlie any vital democracy, and thus it sustains successful functioning. You see where I'm going. Israel needs more of what I call liberal education, and upon that platform, the University of Haifa has a special calling. We are in a position to proclaim a clear agenda and to project our mission not only as important, but also as critical for our historical moment. Our university is strategically placed to make its core mission the education of all citizens. This is education in the full sense already outlined as a transmission of ideas and values. While we will be measured in comparison to other institutions, and rightly so, we also have our own notions of how the University of Haifa might best contribute to Israeli society. In this regard, the excellence for us must, at least in part, be self-defined and executed with the particular needs of our students and the city and region in which we live. As we make difficult choices, we are guided by the mandate of active leadership. Simply, the university has a significant social responsibility. The University of Haifa has enormous potential for nationwide civic leadership because of its unique ethnic and religious composition. This particular demography offers our faculty an important cultural and political resource for achieving a more integrated Israel. I think the university must capitalize on this opportunity by emphasizing its past accomplishments in this regard and its hopes for the future. The 18,000 persons enrolled here comprise the most diversified student population in the nation. A disproportionate number are drawn from Israel's lower economic strata. The academic excellence of the university is developed in part in response to the needs of its constituents. We have a deep commitment to social justice and to the goal of making our democratic ideals a reality for those who have not as yet benefited from the opportunities that advanced education bestows. Upon this long-standing tradition, the university must launch anew its message of social justice and educational advancement. It can thereby serve as a model institution for Israeli democratic ideals. This commitment does not divide right and left, for all of us realize that our future depends on finding ways that all segments of our own people might live together in prosperity. This is what is inclusive democracy. It's non-divisive, it is inclusive, And it's not pitted between Jewish values and democratic values. How do we define Jewish values? Rabbi Hillel on one foot said, "Love thy neighbor." This is the basis of social democracy. To this end, I would like to see a more active effort to examine and thereby improve Jewish minority relations. We speak of an integrated community, but when I go to the lunchroom, I see Arab students congregated together and Jewish students largely sitting separately. But when I go to a hospital cafeteria, I see everybody sitting together. Why? Indeed, why shouldn't we have the same social mingling and cooperation I observe in the hospitals? Why do we not have more Arab administrative staff? Indeed, why don't we have more Arab faculty? I'm dissatisfied with the status quo. That's part of the job of being a chairman. Because the university is the place like hospitals where joint interests intersect. We should build on that opportunity. I've maintained from the beginning of my tenure that the university has a social role, and the most immediate is to help create a vibrant democracy. I'm not convinced that our students deeply understand Israeli democracy either in theoretical terms or practical ones. While there are some civics instruction in pre-university studies, this is at best highly variable and to my mind insufficient. So again, I call on the academic administration to create a medley of courses in electoral politics, political theory, history, and participatory government. I appreciate that students differ in their interests, but a mandatory education in democracy seems to me necessary for an informed electorate, especially today when I see democracy assaulted. Here, Europe, United States. This is a foundational requirement of a great university, to inculcate values which form the foundation of its own mission. Such a curriculum needs not be political in the ordinary sense, but it is ideological. Democracy is an ideology, and as such it must be understood and, on my view, protected. I ask the Senate to formulate such curricular reform. I will end my remarks here. Much else needs to be said, but I will stop and only note that this is the forum where a general statement about the university's ethos can be made without apology or restraint. As we face growing challenges to democracy and the Enlightenment values underlying our way of life, the university must take the lead in directing efforts to sustain an inclusive democracy. If not us, who? If not now, when? This great institution, built on a high hill of hope, must defend the core values of an inclusive democracy and recognize that the larger political culture in which we live ultimately supports or weakens the university's core mission. I, for one, will do what I can to contribute to that larger agenda. I invite you to join me. Thank you. Now what? Excuse me? Come, Mooly.
She calls me.
You want her to do it? Fine.
So thank you, Professor Tauber. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to invite the chairman of the executive committee, Mr. Mooly Eden, to make his report.
Can I get it on the screen as well, gentlemen? Up there? Yeah. So first of all, good morning, everybody. Good morning, everybody. Yeah. Vacation is over. Okay, I believe Ronnie Chan said that one of the best things about the Israelis is that we debate. So let the ceremony begin. Actually, I'm here celebrating a year and a half in my job in the university. And when I was thinking about it, I'm not sure that the right word is celebrating. Maybe it's a stretch. Survival is probably a better word. And when I was speaking with some of my friends from the academia, and I believe after so many years, so many months, I can say I've got few friends, they told me, Mooly, the academia is like a marriage. And I said, what do you mean by that? They say, the first year is going to be terrible. Then you're going to get used to it. So I believe I'm in the stage of getting used to it, but as someone who is still married to wife 1.0 more than 40 years, I also enjoy it. But one of the things that definitely I'm still trying to understand and adapt myself to is the politics in the academic world, which is definitely different than the high tech, and I'm still starting to learn about it. I didn't hear that there is a specific curriculum to cover it. And when I try to understand what's happening and people explain to me, they actually said that Henry Kissinger said that he went to American government because he couldn't stand the university politics. So before saying it, because I'm on stage, I said, let's make sure that I'm quoting it correctly. And when I come to see, click, yeah. If you try everything else, it didn't help, try the on-off switch. He said something different. He said the reason that university politics is so vicious is because stakes are so small. I don't agree with him. I don't think that the stake is small. I think the politics of the university, it's important. It's our future, the university future, and our nation future. Try to summarize the year and a half that I'm here. I believe there was almost kind of a tectonic crash between two cultures, but truth in advertisement, we knew it from day one. And I remember when Ron came to persuade me to come to university, say, Mooly, it's not going to be easy. We are going to debate a lot, but it's going to be fun. So I agree with everything. I'm not sure about the fun, but I believe the crash was between the two cultures. The high-tech culture, which I spent most of a year, result orientation, show me the number, detailed planning, clear strategy, tactics, achieve them, speed, attention to detail, open door policy, full transparency, accountability, meritocracy. If somebody is better, you can give him better. And then on the other side, you've got another culture, which I'm not saying it's better or worse, but it's a different culture. It's academic freedom, it's research and education, professional loyalty and integrity, curiosity, universal. You know, it's not something which is true for Israel only. Rigid hierarchy, you know where you are, who is there. Tenure, he's here and probably will be here forever. Clear turfs, words that drive me nuts from where I came. It was always done this way, or this is the academia, it will take time. And you know, there was a situation, people ask me, I ask people, when is it going to be ready? People tell me in 6 months. I say, why not next week? And they go, do you want it next week? I say, yes, okay. And I look, what have I missed over here? But again, this is the difference between the cultures, which I believe eventually will lead us to a better place. So, as I'm used to do it, and people say, let me start with the problems. And I don't think a problem is a bad thing, because the beginning of every solution starts with identifying the problem. If you don't know what the problem is, for sure you will not be able to solve anything. So the problem that I see today in the university, and by the way, don't be shocked, because I believe for quite a few of them, we've got a pipeline of solution, and I believe to start with the disclaimer, I believe that university today is really, my belief, is in a much better state than it was a year and a half or 2 years ago. There was done a lot of progress along this last several years, and for me to guess, for others to judge, but let me summarize. First of all, I still believe we are still challenged in academic excellence. We are still ranked very low among the Israeli universities. I believe we must get to a better position. And another issue, and I'll come to the solution space, and you'll see, we are not mentioned yet in the Shanghai top 600 ranking list. And we must be there. So we'll come in a moment to the solution. I'll share with you what we are doing in order to address it. But until this will be solved, I'll still see it as a problem. University strategy is not finalized yet. We've got a lot of debates. We are speaking. I believe we made a lot of progress. You'll hear about it today from Ron. We'll show you where we are. We still need to nail it down. We need to be able to summarize it in one page, and we need to be able to trickle it down to the university so every person will be able to spell it out like the 10 Commandments. Lots of progress, but it's not finalized yet. We've got insufficient fundraising compared to similar universities. I'm not speaking about the $7 billion that Ronnie Chen was speaking about USC, but I speak about the million or tens of millions, hundreds of million dollars that our other universities are raising, and I'll cover it later on in detail, so I'll not speak about it too much. Reduction of number of students in humanities and social science. By the way, it's happening all over the world. It's happening all over Israel. But because our university is based on so much of the students in these areas, definitely we need to be able to address it in a different way. And although we are located in the north, we must be able to attract people from the center of Israel. otherwise we'll not be able to solve it. And again, I'll make it short because I'm sure that Ron will cover it in his remark about part of our activities to try to address this issue. Esprit de corps, dictionary, a feeling of pride, fellowship, common loyalty, etc., etc. I believe we're in a much better situation we've been before, and I'll show you some quotation. I still believe we've got a way to go. And when, again, Ronnie is speaking about the esprit de corps of the alumni that are going with their ring, University of North Carolina, who the hell know what it is, but he's going with his ring, at least as if it's Stanford. I believe we should go there because I spent 9.5 years in California, and always I remember opening the TV and seeing the commercial. Good meals come from happy cows grows in California. And I always believe in Intel High Tech that when you have got happy people and proud people, you'll get much better results. And I believe we are not fast enough in scaling up computer science and new data science. By the way, you might hear different results. I'm impatient. I believe we must complement other areas with this. I would like to see it moving faster. I was not successful in contributing in order to move it faster. I'll still try to continue. And I hope that the next year we'll be able to show you much more progress. There are activities in the area. I would like to see it moving forward. And the last thing, definitely you heard about it, Ron spoke about it a lot, Gustavo spoke about it, we are still lacking engineering, which is so important in the 21st century. In a second, I'll speak about what we are doing about it, but until we'll be able to declare victory, I believe it's a problem. I believe we're in a much better shape than we've done before. Now, Albert Einstein, which I quote quite often, used to say the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. So I believe what we are trying to do in the university, and again, it's for us to say, for others to judge, but I hope you'll hear it from others, is that we are addressing things differently. If we want to be a different university, we cannot do the same thing. We are challenging the status quo. We are challenging almost everything, and I believe you'll hear it from my partners in crime later on. We are taking new innovative approach that we didn't do before. And again, if it's innovative, it's risk-taking. And if it's risk-taking, it might fail. It's okay to fail. The biggest risk is not to take risk. So some of our activities, I believe, will be successful big time. Some of our activities that will fail, okay, we learn from the failure, we'll change again, and we'll be successful. But this approach, I believe it's the right approach. I fully support it. We've got the multidisciplinary. We are trying to break silos. And again, I believe other people will cover it much better than me. And as I say, we are taking risks. And I'll cover a few of the areas. As Rami Emanuel said, and I said it in my previous presentation, a crisis is a terrible thing to waste. I believe the overall world, academic world, is in kind of crisis. Things are changing. People ask what's happening with ethics in the last 10 years. And many, many other challenges. The digital world is coming into the academia, etc. I believe the fact that we are not the top university enables us to take much more risk than other universities which are complacent. And for that reason, I would like to believe that when we'll have this discussion 5 or 10 years from now, we'll see that we leverage what used to be called our weakness in order to be in a much better position than we are today. Accomplishments. There are few accomplishments. And again, part of this tectonic argument that I say, I believe is leading us to a good place. Measurement. My belief, personal belief, and again, that's my heritage. If you cannot manage it, if you cannot measure it, you cannot manage it. And if you cannot manage it, you cannot improve it. So for everything I say, what are the numbers? Show me the number. Who is the owner? What is the due date? I know many people hate it. I call it AR, action required. If you are going out of the meeting, what are the things that are going to happen? But we've got many quantifiable plans today that left to be seen. We'll follow and we'll see. So we've got a full comprehensive plan that was devised by the rector, aiming at getting us in a better position or getting into the 600 Shanghai plan. It's got a full plan, all the details, and the scary thing is that actually, if you look at the cum sum, we'll need at least $20 million in order to be able to recruit all the academic members that we need, because quite a few are going to change, and we need to attract good people into the university. Otherwise, we'll not be able to achieve it, and I'll cover this point later on. Now, it's not words. You'll be able to look at the report of Gustavo and his guys, and you can see the detail line by line, day by day, owner by owner. We'll start executing it. Will we make it? I don't know, but we'll follow it, and if we'll not make it, we'll make the right changes in order to make it happen. If I go to the university strategy, as I said, the strategy discussed and disputed, and it's okay. In my world, disputing, it doesn't mean lack of respect. On the contrary, if somebody thinks like me, actually is redundant. I don't need people to agree with me, I need people to disagree with me, because I believe out of the argument will come with something better. I believe we made a lot of progress. As you'll hear from Ron, we still need to close it, ratify it, and trickle it down the organization. Fundraising. Let's call a spade, guys. We've got a problem. What we did, we hired a VP. He's sitting over here, Dan. Raise your hand. You're already too late. We hired a VP for External Relations and Resource Development. And again, we've got a quantified plan, detailed plan. And I believe that you'll cover it later in this Board of Governors. But guys, each year, each geo, how much money do we want to raise? What we are going to do, how we are going to do it, a detailed plan. And again, the good news, we've got a plan. The bad news, that even if we'll be able to raise this amount of money, I'm not sure it's sufficient to fulfill our aggressive plan, but I believe that as we'll execute, I would like to believe that we'll find better ways or additional ways to raise more money, because this fund in the Israel University and the American University all over, part of these things need additional fundraising that without it, we'll not be able to implement our plans. And esprit de corps, I spoke about it, and I believe we're in the right direction, and I'll show it to you. The accomplishment, with respect to the PR, guys, when we joined the university, actually we started a PR, and the PR was to try to break the perception about the University of Haifa, and let's call a spade a spade. The perception was not good. Actually, when I came to the university, I got a phone call from some of my friends that asked me, are you joining the University of Beer Z? Which was not said as a compliment, as a recognition of the fact that we've got this diversity. I believe that the story about the University of Haifa is totally different. This is just an example. The left one, which is the important one, I believe was the first interview that we took together, right? In one of the leading press in Israel blogs, when Ron and myself were interviewed, and actually the message was, we are going to do things differently. We are going to change the paradigm. Actually, we've been called the crazy guys that want to change the academia. It makes a lot of noise. The other one, I believe it's a press article of Ron, but I don't know, they put my picture because probably I'm more handsome. I cannot figure out because everything is quoting you and not me, but still speak about the revolution of the multiversity and the message that we are trying to convey, because people do not remember all the detail. We are different. We are going to do different things. We are challenging the status quo. It's going to be a different university. And by the way, this article makes so much noise that a week later, Ron and myself were invited to the TV, and actually we've been portrayed in a 6-minute major TV show, and I don't know if maybe you know what the meaning of 6 minutes on a TV. And again, this is the TV. For those of you who know, this is Ben Caspit that was actually interviewing Ron and myself. I'll let you listen 20 seconds. For those of you who do not understand Hebrew, try to listen from right to left, the way that we write.
מתחברת לתחושה הכללית שהאקדמיה מאבדת רלוונטיות. האם יש דרך להחזיר אותה למרכז העניינים? באוניברסיטת חיפה מאמינים שכן. אנחנו אומרים שלום למולי עדן. עד ממש לפני זמן קצר סגן נשיא אינטל העולמית והיושב ראש החדש של הוועד המנהל של אוניברסיטת חיפה, שלום. וגם לפרופסור רון רובין, נשיא האוניברסיטה, שלום. אתם מטלטלים את המערכת, קראתי ראיון איתכם.
And what the interview is about, and again, I'll be very glad to translate it and send it to you, is, guys, you are rocking the boat, you are going to do the, are you crazy? And he started blaming who is crazier, Ron and myself, and definitely I was immediately willing to relinquish the title to Ron. But this message came around, and today, if you look around, I believe people speak about the University of Haifa differently than they spoke about 2 years ago. Is it done yet? No. Still a lot to do. But is the paradigm and the story changing? The answer is yes. If I'm looking at the PR, I believe also here we did a great stride. First of all, Ron hired a new PR agency to do student recruitment. Now, we spend money. Definitely, this is not free. We need to have more students. We need to have better students. It's risky. I don't know if it will be successful. Actually, when I'm asking all the time, what are the numbers? I got initial numbers, but I was told that in July, we'll have the final numbers, and Ron's body language says probably the trend looks good. But doing the same thing was a disaster. That's no question about it. And for that reason, I hope that this will be the solution. If this will not be the solution, we'll try another one. Now, the jury is still out, and the message, multiversity, multidisciplinary, preparing the student for future, many, many things that we are trying to be ahead of the track. And the interesting thing is that some of the things that Ronnie is saying, I found in the promotion of the University of Tel Aviv 2 weeks later. So you cannot be so wrong if people are trying to copy or imitate. The only problem is that we need to start running faster now because the tagline that we did definitely had the impact. And again, if I'm trying to look at it, this was one of the promotion that we put on a commercial TV. And the message here that we are trying to convey, you know, our people are multidisciplinary. There's not the same look and feel, the same lawyer, the same everything. And this is how it goes, less than 20 seconds.
אני לא רוצה להיות עוד
I
פסיכולוגית.
don't want to be just another psychologist.
אני לא רוצה להיות
I don't want
כלכלן.
to be just
עוד מתמטיקאי.
another mathematician,
רק עורכת דין,
just
כי
a
העתיד
lawyer.
מחכה לאנשים שהם יותר מדבר אחד.
אוניברסיטת חיפה מציגה את שיטת המולטיברסיטה, לימודים במגוון שילובים חדשניים של חוגים המכינים אתכם באמת לעולם מחדש, כי העתיד נמצא בשילובים, העתיד נמצא באוניברסיטת חיפה.
People didn't know to spell exactly, but say, hey, University of Haifa is something different. Again, the jury is still out, but I'm proud to say, and I got a lot of feedback from people that have seen it. Social responsibility, you know, it's very easy to speak about social responsibility, but many times you need to put your money where your mouth is. I believe it was in the second board that after I joined the university, or the first one, the issue of what are we going to do with the employment of maintenance working, the cleaners, the lower socioeconomic gap of Israel. And you know, we are sitting in all the dinner. The socioeconomic gap is a disaster. We must narrow it down. This is going to hurt the future of Israel. The question, can we tell these people that don't have tenure, don't have it, and put them as part of the university employees to be protected by all this rule? We calculated the cost and everything. Baruch was sitting here trying to do it. It took us more than a year to do the due diligence. We've been the first university to migrate direct employment building maintenance workers. Now, the echo in the Israeli university on TV was huge, to tell the truth. I believe it surprised all of us. Because, you know, this is, by the way, the middle one is the very famous Israeli TV show that was speaking about the University of Haifa is the first university to do it. But the thing that really gave me pride was the tens of mail that we got in the follow-up 48 hours that says, from all these cynical faculty members and dean that say, like to criticize the University of Haifa, etc. Suddenly these people send you, and the leading word is proud. I am proud and impressive. I felt great joy reading this message. This week makes me prouder to be a part of the University of Haifa, and I just gave you snippets, and I tell you, for me, it was music to my ears, because when I say the word esprit de corps, is to see employee of the establishment you're working with say, I'm proud to be here. Because if he's proud to be here, he communicates it in other places, and I believe this is the beginning. We need to continue in other ways. With respect to the buildings, I believe I'll do it very, very fast because Goron is going to expand on it. First of all, we are going to try to reach downtown. Two major objectives. First of all, we want to recruit excellent people from the center of Israel. We are far away from a good transportation center. Downtown is close to the railway station. We believe we'll be able to attract more student faculty member. As I said, the jury is out, but we are putting a lot of effort into it. The University Haute Braude, which is the engineering arm that I will speak about, I believe Ron is putting day and night in order to strike the deal and close it. We are in a very advanced stage. Again, I hope that next year we'll be able to say, or even earlier you'll get it, hey guys, this is done, but this definitely will give us the engineering arm we are looking for. We've got good traction on this. It's not going to be simple, but we are going to work on it. And the university, the Discovery Building, I would like to believe that the collaboration between the university, Rambam, and the Technion and startups, people will hear about it not only in Israel, but around the world, because this is the essence of the startup nation, to take so many different disciplines. To summarize, if I'm trying to see where we are, we've got many challenges ahead of us. With academic excellence, for myself, is topping the list. I believe we'll have to be better in the academic excellence because this is mandatory in order to be able to fulfill all the other missions that we spoke about, including the mission that Professor Tauber spoke about. I believe if you are good, you can drive the rest of your agenda. We need to finalize the university strategy, and I believe we'll do it in the near future. University of Haifa is on the map. It's on the radar screen with a different narrative. We still need to work on it. I believe people address us in a different way. We've got new management, new spirit, new university, and we've got PR, press, and TV. Or in my language, I believe we've got new content, which the rector and the president are working, and we've got new container. The content is what we are doing. The container is how we communicate it. I believe we are doing, and we're approaching both these issues. And this disappeared. All the programs are quantifiable. I know that some people are angry at me, some people hate me, but I always learn in Intel that being a leader is not a popularity contest. Steve Jobs once told me, if you want to be popular, don't be a manager, go and sell ice cream. I believe with him. And I had it with him when I was working in Santa Clara. So I believe we've got much more quantifiable program. Definitely we should not be slave of indicators if people are afraid, but this is the way to know where we are and improve. We've got good traction on the new location. You'll hear a lot of it later on. We take risk, but gentlemen, I hope to spend the 3 days ahead of us. Ron, myself, Danny, Gustavo will make ourselves available. We need the Board of Governors' help in raising funds to accomplish our challenging objective. Guys, I'm not sure that each one of you can give us money. Definitely, I'd be more than glad to get it. But we need you to open the door, to get us the right places that we'll be able to speak, to get at the right places that we'll be able to expose our faculty member. We've got very interesting stories. We've got many, many things to share, to show people that we are really going to do change in many, many areas, but we need to get the opportunities and location, and we definitely need you, because whatever you see on my list is a problem, and I believe later on, if you'll see other stuff, we'll not be able to get it without the help, and we really need you to expand. And with my hope is not only that you'll be able to open us to additional people, but you'll be able to recruit additional people. So next time we'll have a more full room in order to be able to achieve our challenges. Thank you very much and have a great 3 days.
Thank you, Mr. Reuven. I now invite Advocate Basha'er Fahoum-Jayoussi, Chair of the Control Committee, to give her report to the board.
Good morning. Wow. Professor Alfred Tauber, Chairman of the Board of Governors, Mr. Mooly, the Chairman of the Executive Committee, Professor Reuven, President, Professor Gustavo Mesh, distinguished fellow members of the Board of Governors, faculty, administrative staff, dear friends. I am pleased to present my 2017-2018 annual report of the Control Committee. My report this year is twofold. The first is an overview of the Controllers Unit and the Control Committee's activities over the past year since our last gathering. The second has to do with the changes that occurred in the Controllers Unit and our future plans going forward. This year, the Controllers Unit initiated an in-depth inspection of Carmel Haifa University Economic Corporation that resulted in a comprehensive control report, and I will share with you briefly the findings. Carmel Haifa, and as the company rightfully introduces itself in the website, serves as the commercialization and business arm of the University of Haifa, and is responsible for protecting and commercializing its intellectual property. Carmel Haifa acts as a separate legal entity and collaborates with various partners and establishes ventures, companies, and funds with the goal of maximizing the business potential of commercializing research and knowledge developed in the university. The report was centered on two levels. The first level dealt with the standard internal audit issues, including the gathering and inspecting of documents, bylaws, agreements, and fiscal reports. The second examined the relationship and interaction between Carmel Haifa and the university units. The major findings showed that in recent years, under the leadership of its board and CEO, Dr. El-Kanir, Carmel is notably developing and growing. Still, In order to achieve its fundamental goals, it needs the full cooperation of the university's management and various units and organs, primarily the research authority and faculty members. The conclusions were that the cooperation needs to be enhanced and supported and portrayed a roadmap towards achieving that. It was also found that the university's bylaws still lack proper regulation concerning the issue of intellectual property and need to address that promptly and comprehensively. Obviously, we cannot stress enough how crucial proper regulation of intellectual property is for the university. The findings also indicated the need to revisit and revise some of the articles and stipulations in the founding agreement between the university and Cornell. Also, the report asserted that Cornell and its business activities need more exposure within the university's inner circles, the faculty and student communities, and can use external exposure through the Division of External Relations and Resource Development, Friends Associations, and so on. The responses to the report indicated that there are real efforts invested towards accomplishing a refined and more intertwined relationship with Cornell. Yet, these efforts need to be enhanced, and some modifications are required to overcome some of the objective obstacles that were detected, and our recommendations were formulated to that end. It was our impression that there are more issues related to Cornell that further need our attention and inspection, mainly regarding the aforementioned founding agreement, the implementation of its articles, and Cornell's financial model of action. Accordingly, we decided to follow up on these issues in an additional report that is planned to be presented by the end of this academic year. Also underway are two important control reports that will be discussed in the coming few months. A report on the Port Campus, touching on issues that we firmly believe have consequence and effect, especially with the university's new endeavor to create a multiversity, expanding both the scope and the activities within the Port Campus. The second control report is about the pre-academic unit. At this point, I am pleased to further inform that we were able to close the last three of the old control reports, concluding an effort to eliminate a total sum of 17 open old reports during the past 3 years. In addition, during the past year, the university's controller office dealt with the complaints received through the anonymous complaint digital box and other channels. This concludes the first section of my report, as I go forward to the second concerning the recent changes in the controller's unit. This year, the university controller, CPA Ms. Miki Peretz, will be ending her two terms in office. I want to seize this opportunity to extend on behalf of the control committee our deep gratitude for her services and wish her all the luck in her future endeavors. We are currently launching a search process to fill the position, and we hope to recruit a suitable candidate soon. As I end my third year heading the control committee, my understanding of the importance of the audit process as a cornerstone of good governance has only become deeper and stronger. A crucial attribute of the audit process is its ability to serve as a managerial tool due to the independent assessment of programs, policies, operations, and results that it provides. With that in mind, it is imperative to keep the audit process current and up to date, and to support the people in charge of performing it. So, with your assistance and support, we intend to review our current directives and bylaws towards that end in order to revise and amend them as needed. I wish to thank the university's controller unit, CPA Ms. Miki Peretz, and her deputy attorney, Zohar Nachshon, for their work. Thank you very much. A big thank you also goes to our devoted Ms. Esti Becker for her role as a competent committee coordinator. And last but definitely not least, I wish to extend my deepest gratitude to my fellow members of the control committee for their contribution and dedication. Dr. Avigdor Zonenstein, Attorney Benny Baratz, Professor Gal Rechter-Ravin, CPA Pini Lahat, Attorney Shulamit Ashbol, and our newest member, Professor Moshe Kem. For the third year, we're in Ramadan, coinciding with the Board of Governors, so in the spirit of diversity, I leave you with Ramadan Kareem. Thank you.
Welcome back, guests, friends, and faculty, and a special welcome to all of you who've just joined us. I now call Professor Tauber to the stage for the ratification of the financial statement of the university as of September 30th, 2017, the ratification of the budget framework for the 2017-18 academic year, and appointment of the auditor.
Okay, the Board of Governors has fiduciary responsibilities. We used to spend a lot of time doing them. Now we don't. Trusting the good offices that you have looked at the reports and have considered them seriously. So with that assumption, I'm going to ask for ratification of the financial statement of the university as of September 30th, 2017. Are there any comments or issues that the Board of Governors wishes to raise? Okay, so only members of the Board of Governors vote, please. All those in favor of its ratification, raise your hands. All those opposed? It's carried unanimously. Thank you. The second ratification required is the budget for 2017-18 academic year. Are there any comments or questions? All those in favor of the ratification of the current budget? All those opposed? Thank you very much. And in regards to the appointment of the university auditor, all those in favor? Opposed? Thank you very much. Please note that these materials, which were sent to you a few weeks ago, have been compiled with care and are official documents. I am assuming that this format of ratification, as opposed to committee meetings that are focused on the various elements that we had previously, financial status of the university and its development, academics, and such, is suitable. Are there any comments about the way we're doing business? I guess not. Good. Thank you very much.
Now it is time to hear from our president. Please note that at the end of his report, you'll be able to ask questions, and there will be microphones available for that purpose. So, without further ado, I would like to invite our president, Professor Reuven, to give his report.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome. It's wonderful to see so many faculty members, so many guests. If I may, a personal comment, I would like to thank in particular my predecessor, who's sitting here on the front row, Amos Shapira, for coming. Thank you so much, Amos. So it's a year and a half, almost 2 years, hard to believe. A lot of things have happened. Many of these issues we'll be talking about during the course of the strategic plan, which we'll present a little later today. And you have the report at your disposal. It's on your app. You've received copies of it. And I don't want to stand up here and just be repetitious. So we were thinking of a format to go through this. And the format is sort of based on a question that people keep asking me. So when I meet people, new people, they say, oh, so you, the president of the university, so you run the place. And anybody who's familiar with the university knows that an answer to that question is very, very complicated. It's not a simple answer. Running a university is running a loose confederation of people who are very, very smart with very different ideas and perhaps pulling in multiple directions. So it is basically trying to coordinate an airplane that is flying in multiple directions, and that is not an easy task. And we were thinking of a format perhaps to present this to you. And the format that we decided upon was to take you through my weekly appointments, as you can see, and give you a sense of where we're going. So without further ado, let's do that and try and describe what a typical week looks like. So let's start with Sunday, of course. Let's start with the first day of the week. Somebody actually has to turn the pages for me. Thank you so much. So a typical week begins with leadership meetings, and here you see a meeting that will always happen first thing on Sunday. It was with our Chief Academic Officer, our Rector Gustavo Mesh, who's here in the front, where we will sit down and figure out where we're going in that week, followed by meetings with the various deans, and here you see some of the meetings that I had on that particular Sunday. These sort of meetings are not what you would consider in the business world, the place where Mooly comes from, for example. This is dealing with people who are actually in charge of something like a fiefdom and have a lot of independence in doing this. And while some people might see this as a weakness, that the managerial structure of a university is so diffuse, it's actually its sense of strength. And to give you a sense of the strength, you see here on the right-hand side, Nachal Me'arot, a place that we discovered recently. You might know what happened at Nachal Me'arot. Our archaeologists there found the oldest human remains outside of Africa from nearly 200,000 years ago. It's a discovery of a prehistoric human jawbone in a cave near Haifa, which pushes back the clock of the evolution of Homo sapiens and our ancestors' first exodus from Africa. It's quite dramatic. This jawbone suggests that Homo sapiens were already leaving Africa through the Middle East and populating the rest of the globe way before we ever thought it was possible. None of this would have been possible to discover, none of this would have been possible to decipher without this free-flowing nature of the culture. Here we have a bunch of archaeologists picking up a jawbone in a cave that they found, deciding on their own volition to go and talk to the biologists and chemists who work here at the university, try and figure out the age of this whole thing, finally coming up with the finding that was published in Science. Anybody who knows anything about the world of science and nature knows that there are two great journals, and we found ourselves on the front pages of Science. This can only happen in a place where people have this freedom to think out of the box, have this freedom to decide who they draw coalitions with. In other words, this can only happen, if to go back to the comments made by Ronnie Chen earlier on, it can only happen in a comprehensive university, in a university where almost every field exists and where independent actors figure out the most efficient way to collaborate. This is what is great about a comprehensive university. So let's move on to the next day. As you can see from this particular slide, much of my time is dedicated to interacting with our university leadership team. Here you'll see a number of them. Many of you know them, in addition to Gustavo, who we meet, of course, on a daily basis. You see our CEO, Baruch, the Vice President and CEO, Baruch Marzan, is over there. Shoshi, our academic secretary, and a bunch of other people who you may know from your work here. So the concept of a leadership team in a university is to provide the necessary conditions for innovation that starts at the bottom. That is what we do here, basically. We try to provide the infrastructure. We try to recruit the necessary faculty. You can see over there on the left-hand side of the screen a meeting that Gustavo and I and Lily, our Dean of Graduate Studies, had with our young leadership team. We're at an incredible moment at the university right now. Over the course of the last few years and into the future, the founding generation of the university are departing. They're retiring. And we're at this incredible moment at which we can recruit young faculty, focus the university in an innovative way towards the future. This is an ideal moment. It happens once in a generation, of course. And this is what we do over here. We provide the necessary conditions for these people here in this slide that you see here for Gustavo and myself, the academia of tomorrow. We have to nurture, we have to invest in this generation, and we have to provide them with the necessary infrastructure to succeed. Let's move on to the next day. As you can imagine, as a university president, I tend to find myself shaking lots of hands, signing lots of scrolls during all sorts of ceremonial activities. But most of these, I must say, most of these are, there's a point to these ceremonies. They move the university forward. Here you see of them, you see two such events over here. The bottom one was laying the cornerstone for one of the great activities of this university's future, and that is the Discovery Tower on Rambam. We'll be talking much more about this when we talk about the strategic plan. I will make a note over here that Fred said in passing, we're in the midst of a large strategic plan which we'll be describing in a couple of hours. But this strategic plan, the seeds of it were laid a long time ago. This was Fred's plan. And what we're doing now is implementing many of the ideas that you brought to the university. And I find that to be very, very gratifying that we're able to pull that off. The top picture there is with the Chancellor of East China Normal University, our partners in China, and of course a university that does not have global reach. It will never make it. I think Ronnie Chan was very clear in that picture. So you see here on Friday what I would call an aspirational picture. It doesn't really happen on a regular basis that on Friday I can actually spend my time the way I'd like to spend it, but at least it's an aspiration. I do say, though, that the following day, on Saturday, we do have the opportunity, and we do spend a lot of time together with family. And here I'm spending time with my grandchildren, as you can see. I think the reason I give the slide is not to show off my grandchildren, although it is kind of to show off my grandchildren, but is to give you a sense of a constant reminder that I think permeates the leadership here at the university and permeates our faculty too. We know that there is an intergenerational contract between us, the current grown-ups in charge, and the future generations. That's our responsibility. We are planting trees, you know that old cliche which rings true. We are planting trees that others will enjoy that shade of it. And as such, I make efforts to visit high schools. There you can see a very poorly executed selfie of myself with high school students at the Reali School. But the basic idea here is to make sure that we know their thoughts, we have an idea of their aspirations, and we try and fulfill it. My Sunday visit over here was to the lab of our Vice President for Development, Dani Chernov, who is sitting here in the front row, bringing to life another point made by Ronnie Chen earlier on today. While we are a comprehensive university, we have to figure out particular areas in which we excel. I don't think it's particular disciplines. I think it's wrapping our heads around significant challenges facing Israeli society and bringing in multidisciplinary solutions to that particular challenge. We all know that the sea, in many ways, is the future of Israeli society. It is the source of our energy, it's the source of our water, it's the source of our protein. And as Dani always reminds me, time after time after time, we know more about the surface of the moon than we know about the bottom of the sea. And so wrapping our heads around a particular problem like this one is where we spend a lot of our time, of course, and you can see here some of the underwater tricks of the trade that we do with all sorts of technology and people from multiple disciplines, from archaeology to marine biology and everything in the middle. So we've spoken about all sorts of stakeholders at the university. Let me just mention another one, which I think is very important, and those, of course, are our students. Fred mentioned before his dissatisfaction. I'm not going to use the word disappointment. His dissatisfaction that we're not doing more to integrate society. But I will say the following, and there are multiple slides here suggesting what we do. So first of all, I will say this very clearly. We are the creators of Israel's new middle class. Those people in the hospital who interact, they began their lives in the universities. And that's where it all began. It's not always an issue of Jews and Arabs, by the way. Many of our Arab students come from rural areas, and the meeting of rural and urban is a difficult meeting in itself. There are many reasons that the interaction takes place slowly, it gestates at the university, and it reaches fruition when people enter the workplace, as Fred mentioned. But we are very proud of that. We're proud of our international students. We're absolutely proud of the diversity of our student body. If you look at the picture on the bottom right-hand side, I think here is the sign of possibly the most important element of the integration of the Arab population into the university. It's overwhelmingly female. And we know that women are the agents of change in families. And it's through this huge body of women, Arab women, who come through our universities that we see some of the major changes happening in Israeli society right now. I forget now who, it was probably Mooly, who made mention of the top slide over there. We are extremely proud of the fact that we don't only talk social justice, but we actually do it as well. And that our janitorial staff are now members of the permanent staff at the university and are not just outside contractors. There's a class, an English class at the top slide over there that we give to our janitorial staff who are now members of our staff. And once again, we're extremely proud that we don't only talk social justice, we do it. It's a major challenge. If we move on to the next day, you can move on to the next slide. I think here is another challenge that a comprehensive university faces. Ronnie Chan spoke about universities that focus on one area or two areas. In a comprehensive university, we try to do two things at the same time. We try to look towards the future. Here you see Danny Feldman's lab, where he develops extremely smart drones, which are tiny, tiny, and almost weigh nothing, and can be flown in houses and all sorts of places where you don't flow drones usually. And on the other side of the slide, you see here our Vice Dean in the Humanities, Jonathan Bendov, talking about something which is basically about the past. Let's hear what he says before I comment on that.
50 or so fragments of cryptic scroll about the calendar of the community of the Dead Sea Scrolls. It's nicely done in digital tools. It's the one before last. It's a work done by Dr. Shalaton. I also got some nice media attention. That was very nice. And we are actually working on the next scroll. Well, we could say the last unpublished Dead Sea Scroll. We're looking forward to do something about it. Our digitization project moves on. We've got German partners. We're working with Israeli Antiquities Authority. And a lot of progress is done there. Hopefully next year, a new platform will be out online for the use of the public.
So here's a scholar who spends his life poring over fragments of Dead Sea Scrolls. None of this would have been possible had he not joined with the lab of Danny Feldman and figured out the technology to take these little pieces of scroll, join them together, and make something worthwhile. I think that can only happen in a very comprehensive university. See a few people yawning. And so let me take a sip of water while you see me resting for a second. Once again, an aspirational slide. So here's another aspect which I think is important to bring to the attention of the Board of Governors. So far we've spoken about internal constituents of the university, our faculty members, our students, our administrative staff, our janitorial staff. This is a public university. Everybody outside of this university thinks they know how to run this place better than we do. And we are constantly bombarded by figures. You probably recognize many of the people on the slide. I see Mooly in two of these pictures, but Mooly's in every one of these pictures. He just is in the background. You can't see him right here. But decision leaders and decision makers and leaders have come to our university. Shira Ben-Or, who's sitting over there, has organized many of these meetings. We're constantly told by leaders in the government and elsewhere how we should run this university, what we should be doing. Managing that is no less of a challenging task than anything else that we've described right now. And at the same time, we cannot manage this if we don't engage leaders abroad. Here you see a picture of Klaus Schwab. You remember him from last year, those of you around from the World Economic Forum, who received an honorary doctorate over here. And once again, this is a significant part of what we do on a daily basis, is managing. We have porous walls. There actually are no walls at a university. It's not even a moat, it's nothing. And people constantly are writing us letters, phoning us, telling us how to run our lives, which, by the way, is part of the job. I'm not, while there is a sense of complaining deep down there, it's not really. We've managed to figure this out. I do believe, and let's look at the next slide, I do believe that Ronnie Chan made a point, and Mooly mentioned this as well, and esprit de corps is an incredibly important part of the life that we develop here. Fred knows this well from his previous experience in the United States. Sports is one way of doing it, and where we can just take a tiny glance at perhaps the intercollegiate champions of basketball in Israel. Go ahead. So this is, of course, no NCAA, but on the other hand, we did win the Intercollegiate Basketball Championship last year. This year, we are the runners-up. We're also, actually, when I think about it, running a university is a little bit like a basketball game out of Alice in Wonderland. It looks the same, but the baskets keep moving. Teams wander in and out. Sometimes they play against each other. Sometimes they play with each other. There's some sort of analogy one can see in that as well. We also excel very much in academic sport. We have our very first Rhodes Scholar, the third Rhodes Scholar ever in Israel, the first from the University of Haifa. Her name is Liam Najami. She received a Rhodes Scholar, and we're extremely proud of it. Our debating team is the Israeli champion of the debates, and we compete well in all sorts of international competitions. And so I do think building an esprit de corps, whether it's around sports, whether it's around academic excellence, whether it's around events that we hold over here, is a crucial element of where we're going to move in the future, and we hope we'll be able to manage that. So the slide on the right-hand side there, that one over there, I can't say it's my favorite one. A lot of travel is involved here, and if you look at the next slide, you get a good example of where I've been recently. Ronnie Chan mentioned this. We had a great trip to Hong Kong, where we got to meet the leaders of most of the university in Hong Kong, who have just roared ahead in the international rankings, as you must know. I think the point of this slide is that you cannot be a local university. It's not possible. I don't think you can be a global university, too. You have to be something in the middle, what people like to call glocal, where the local impinges on the global and the global impinges on the local. This is part of, while fundraising abroad is an important part of this trip, forging these ties with places all over the world suggests to me that this is a very insignificant part of our future profile. I'm not going to go too much into detail of my next day. I'll just say the following. We'll be discussing this in about 2 hours' time, something like this. But one of the most important objectives of those trips aboard, of course, is fundraising. We, as you probably know, and if you don't, this is a wonderful opportunity to inform you that we have recently received a huge boost to our efforts to expand the university in the various portals around Haifa. As you may know, thanks to the efforts of the American Association of the University of Haifa in the United States, the tremendous efforts of that group, we have received a $10 million grant from Mr. Lori Lokay, who you may know, to expand and solidify our downtown campus. And you get a sense over there from that movie what the downtown campus will eventually look like. We'll be talking about that much more as we move on. You see there on the right-hand side some of the other major initiatives here to bring the university, position the university in another place. We'll be talking about that in significant detail as we walk through this during the course of the strategic plan that I'll be presenting. But the point I would like to make here is the confidence that people who have invested in universities before have discovered in our university. And I think that's a major step forward. It happened during Amos's tenure when the Amir family voted a huge vote of confidence in the university. It now happens with Lori Lokay, and there are going to be many, many more people like that. The university now inspires people. What we do here academically, what we do here socially, inspires people, and we're very, very, very happy that we have these partners with us as we move forward. I would be remiss if I wouldn't be a little selfish at the end of this presentation, and please forgive me for showing off my wonderful staff, the backroom staff that we have over here, the Wonder Woman who support me on a daily basis. There is Libby, you see Hila, you see Aviva, and of course Revital, all of these people who support me. But it takes, as you know, it's not one person, it's not two people, it's not the leadership team. It takes a whole village. And perhaps we can see a little glimpse of that village for a second. So, welcome to the Multiversity. In a couple of hours, we'll be presenting the strategic plan, an update on the strategic plan, where we'll walk you through what we've done so far and where we intend to go. Thank you so much for your attention, and have a wonderful break until we meet again.
So no break yet, sorry. Thank you, Professor Reuven. We shall proceed to the presentation of awards, and it gives me great pleasure to call upon our rector, Professor Gustavo Mesh, to say a few words about the significance of such prizes.
Good morning and welcome to the Board of Governors. It is a very important moment for the academic members and faculty members of the university, this moment in which we recognize our best teachers and researchers. And we have a lot of talent here. The task was very difficult. There were 3 independent committees that each one selected the recipients of the excellence in teaching, the excellence in research, and the Dusty and Etty Miller scholarship. And I want to thank the person that was coordinating all these committees, the Vice Rector, Professor Gad Barzilai, and the members of all the committees that had a very tough work in selecting the right people. The University of Haifa places great emphasis on high-quality teaching, improving teaching quality, cultivating excellent teachers, and highlighting the task of teaching and educating. A good teacher, we believe, inspires hope, ignites the imagination, and instill a love of learning that bring our students to fulfill their human potential, our goal. The aims of the Rector Teaching Award are to honor and thank teachers for their excellent teaching performance, their significant contribution to enhancing the quality of learning and teaching at the university. I want only to say into brackets that the recipients of the teaching award are also by themselves high-level researchers, but at the same time are also wonderful teachers. So they are getting the award because of their teaching, but they are outstanding researchers as well. The core of University of Haifa are innovative ideas and breakthrough research. Our national and international reputation is built on the excellence of the research undertaken here across a broad spectrum of activity and disciplines by some of the nation's best minds. The Rector Research Excellence Award and the Dusty Miller Scholarship are designed to recognize and reward important and pioneering work as they recognize young and advanced faculty members for outstanding performance and excellence in research and innovation during this year.
Thank you, Professor Mesh. The Rector will remain on stage for the awards. Our first prize to be awarded today is the Lecturer Prize for Outstanding Teaching. A very old Japanese proverb proclaims that better than 1,000 days of diligent study is one day with a great teacher. Our two recipients today, Professor Yael Latzer from the School of Public Health and School of Social Work, and Dr. Guy Podler from the Department of Asian Studies, are two such gifted teachers. We have prepared a short film so that we can hear from the students themselves how deserving these two teachers are. Let's have a look.
אני מכירה את פרופסור לצר כבר קרוב ל-15 שנים, מאז שאני נכנסתי לתחום הפרעות האכילה. היה ברור לי שאני מחפשת מנחה שתביא איתה גם הרבה מאוד ביטחון אקדמי ובהנחיה, אבל גם הרבה מאוד ניסיון והיכרות של השטח, של התחום. ומבחינתי היא הייתה הבחירה האולטימטיבית, ונורא קיוויתי שהיא תסכים להנחות אותי, ומאוד מאוד שמחתי כשהיא הסכימה.
את הדרך שלי עם יעל התחלתי עוד בלימודי המאסטר, עשיתי גם מחקר בהנחייתה, שהוא היה ככה מחקר משמעותי, הוא עסק בנושא של אשפוז בכפייה למטופלות שמתמודדות עם אנורקסיה נרבוזה קשה בישראל. והעבודה הייתה עבודה של שנה שהיא הייתה גם מלמדת ומעשירה, אבל גם נעימה מאוד, שזה משהו שאולי ככה יותר ייחודי ליעל ולדרך שלה.
יש משהו בסגנון ההנחיה של פרופסור לצר, שהוא מצד אחד מאוד מחזיק ומאוד יודע ומאוד אימהי מבחינה גם של חום אנושי וגם אקדמי, ומצד שני מאפשר הרבה מאוד חופש.
גם יודעת לתת ולפרגן ולהעריך ולהקשיב.
לשאול, להתלבט, להביא דעות, לחשוב ביחד.
יש לה צד מאוד מקצועי והמון ידע. בכל שאלה אני יודעת שישר אני יכולה לפנות אליה, ובאמת תמיד אני אקבל את התשובה הטובה ביותר, מבחינה מקצועית, אין ספק. אבל גם באמת בצד האנושי, שזה משהו שהוא באמת כל כך, אם אני לוקחת לעצמי משהו ככה מהדרך הזאת, זה היכולת כאילו להיות אמפתית ולהקשיב ובאמת להתלבט ביחד עם הסטודנט להתייחס בגובה העיניים, לפרגן, כאילו באמת, זה דברים שהם ככה ממעלותיה, שהם מאוד ייחודיים, אני חושבת. בגלל זה גם העבודה כל כך נעימה, אז אתה גם לומד, אבל אתה גם לומד על עצמך כזה, בדרך.
אז אני מכיר את גיא משהו כמו 9 שנים. מה שאני זוכר ככה מהתואר הראשון, אני ידעתי, והרבה סטודנטים אחרים גם ידעו, אם רואים את השם שלו בסילבוס, באיזה קורס, זה קורס שצריך לקחת.
להיות סטודנטית אצל גיא זה חוויה. אני לא חושבת שיש סטודנט, לפחות בחוג שלנו, שלא נהנה לבוא להרצאות שלו, ולא משקיע בלימודים במבחנים, כי כולם יודעים שהמבחנים של גיא הם מאוד מאוד קשים.
קודם כל, באמת, החומר מעניין, וגיא מצליח להעביר אותו באופן מרתק.
האדם שמצליח לעורר כל כך הרבה עניין בלימודי קוריאה, בכלל בלימודים, ולרצות להשקיע, ולהוציא ציונים טובים, שאני לא חושבת שראיתי מישהו אחר כזה.
רואים שהוא מאוד מאוד רוצה שכל הסטודנטים שלו יצליחו, וההצלחה שלהם מאוד מאוד חשובה לו. מבחינת רמה מקצועית זה קצת מלחיץ להיות מאסטרנטית של מישהו שהוא אחד המומחים היחידים בארץ לשתי הקוריאות.
כל מה שאני יודע פחות או יותר על קוריאה, בין אם זה קוריאה המסורתית או קוריאה המודרנית, זה ממנו.
לא משנה מה אני אשאל אותו בכלל בתחום של קוריאה, הצפונית או הדרומית, הוא תמיד ידע לענות, הוא תמיד ידע לצאת עם זה, והוא תמיד ידע לגרום לי להגיד, וואו, גיא יודע. זהו, גיא, רציתי פשוט לברך אותך, מגיע לך באמת, ומגיע לך אפילו הרבה יותר מזה. ממש תודה לך. בסדר, כן.
For the presentation of award to Professor Yael Latzer with our rector, it is my pleasure to invite to the stage university friend from Switzerland, Ms. Fabienne Hoffmann. I call upon Professor Latzer to the stage to receive this well-deserved honor. Thank you, Ms. Hoffman, and congratulations, Professor Latzer. For the presentation of award to Dr. Guy Podler, together with our rector, it is my pleasure to invite to the stage a dedicated university friend, a member of this Board of Governors, and the chairperson of the American Society of the University of Haifa, Dr. Sharon Azarian. I call upon Dr. Podler to come to the stage to receive his award. Thank you, Dr. Nazarian, and congratulations, Dr. Podler. We shall proceed to the presentation of the Outstanding Researcher Prize to Professor Wendy Sandler from the Department of English Language and Literature, and the Outstanding Young Researcher Prize to Dr. Tali Mas of the Department of Marine Biology at the Leon H. Charney School of Marine Sciences. We shall watch a short film about these prolific researchers.
Language defines us from the day we are born until our very last breath. Language helps us shape our thinking and create abstract ideas. It is a central tool in creating complex human societies and cultures. Language is one of the most distinctive and unique features of us as human beings. But how can we study the evolution of language when all the spoken languages today already exist? Professor Wendy Sandler, head of the Sign Language Research Laboratory at the University of Haifa, is investigating languages that are currently emerging. Today we know that sign languages include all structures of spoken languages. Professor Sandler was able to identify newly emerging sign language and study how traditional linguistic components of morphology, syntax, and vocabulary interact, and found that intonation, cynicism, and sarcasm, and even accents are present. Professor Sandler is currently conducting a multidisciplinary research project, The Grammar of the Body, which investigates the structure and evolution of language, including brain research and innovative sign language theater laboratory. Thanks to the research of Professor Sandler, who received the prestigious ERC grant from the European Research Council, we can better understand what it means to be human. The sea is still one of the world's greatest mysteries. Today, we know more about outer space than we know about the deep sea, which is right here in our very own backyard. The sea holds many deep secrets. It's a treasure trove of raw materials that produce life-saving medicines and provide future sources of food. Dr. Tali Mas of the Leon Cherney School of Marine Sciences is investigating one of the most amazing forms of life on the planet, corals. Tiny creatures capable of creating enormous reefs that make up the rainforests of the sea. Dr. Mas is studying the unique way corals form their hard skeletons from calcium carbonate. Studying coral calcification can help us better understand the impact of global processes of immense importance to mankind and the entire planet, including ocean acidification and the dangers of climate change on raising ocean temperatures, and lead to groundbreaking biomedical developments such as bone grafts and implants. Dr. Mas is the recent recipient of the prestigious ERC Award, which will enable her to continue to study corals, one of nature's greatest wonders.
It is my great privilege to invite to the stage a dear friend of the university, a staunch supporter of the State of Israel, and one of the most prominent American Jewish leaders, Mr. Barry Schraig. Please join our rector on stage to present the Outstanding Researcher Prize to Professor Wendy Sandler.
I want also to add that Professor Wendy Sandler is a recipient of the Landau Prize this year, and it was a great honor for Ron and us to attend that conference and be asked by the presidents of other universities, what are you doing here? Well, we also have a prize here. Really?
Thank you, Mr. Schraig, and congratulations, Professor Sandler. I now call upon Mr. David Lubarsky, university friend and supporter from the US, to join our rector on stage and present the Outstanding Young Researcher Prize to Dr. Tali Mas. I now call upon Dr. Tali Mas to come up and receive this well-deserved prize.
Tali also was promoted a week and a half ago to senior lecturer of the university at the same time.
Thank you, Mr. Oh gosh, I'm short. Thank you, Mr. Lubarsky, and congratulations, Dr. Mas. I now have the pleasure of announcing the presentation of the Dusty and Etty Miller Fellowship for Outstanding Young Scholars. This long-standing and prestigious award has become a blessed tradition during these proceedings. Our recipient this year is the very talented and well-deserving Dr. Yafit Gabay of the Faculty of Education. The award will be presented by the rector and the head of the Department of Special Education, Professor Paul Miller. I ask that Professor Mela and Dr. Gabay please come up.
Before I congratulate Yafit, I want to warn her. In 1998, Yafit, I was awarded also the Dusty and Etty Miller Award. So be careful, because 20 years from now, you are in danger to become director.
Dr. Yafit Gabay will now respond on behalf of the recipients.
Professor Fred Tauber, Chairman of the Board of Governors, Mr. Mooly Eden, Chairman of the Executive Committee, Professor Reuven, President, Professor Gustavo Mas, Rector, honorable guests and members of the Board of Governors, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Yafit Gabay, and I'm a faculty member at the Special Education Department here at the University of Haifa. I would like to say thank you on behalf of all awards recipients. I wish to say it is a great honor to be this year Dusty and Etty Miller Fellowship recipient. As a young researcher, this fellowship represents a vote of confidence for my journey toward advancing research knowledge in my field. Understanding the basic mechanisms contributing to literacy attainment is critical to improving the well-being of individuals in society. Low literacy is associated with widespread socioeconomic problems, including lower labor force participation, greater reliance on public assistance, and lower civic involvement. A key question that drives my research concerns the mechanisms by which language-related skills are successfully learned and the difficulties encountered by some in acquiring these skills. At my lab, we study the involvement of domain general learning mechanisms in the formation of speech categories and in the etiology of developmental dyslexia, one of the most common neurodevelopmental disorders. To this end, our work combines different disciplines such as cognitive science, speech perception, and neuropsychology. Research conducted in the lab will have direct implications for literacy and language education, and hopefully will direct future evidence-based approaches to supporting learning among those with dyslexia and other sources of low literacy. I would like to thank the Miller family for their award and their children, Leslie and Ian Miller, who have chosen my work, as well as the head of my department, Professor Paul Miller, who recommended me for this award. Thank you.
Thank you for your lovely response, and congratulations, Yafit. Ladies and gentlemen, we are at the end of this opening plenary session. We have a full program planned ahead. We are now convening for lunch right outside this auditorium, to be followed by the presentation of the university's strategic plan in this very auditorium, the opening of an exhibition honoring the 7th anniversary of the Unison Saraya Nazarian Library Innovation and Expansion Project. Later on in the evening, the conferment of the Outstanding Leadership Award and degrees of Doctor of Philosophy honoris causa. It was my pleasure and honor to be a Master of Ceremonies today. May this Board of Governors meeting be fruitful and joyful to all of you.